Good afternoon, everyone. I am Sulakshna, host for this webinar on behalf of Wadhwani Foundation, National Entrepreneurship Network. As we begin the session, I'd like to take you through the phenomenal job that Wadhwani Foundation is doing in supporting startup, early stage and growth stage entrepreneurs and SMEs to grow their business. They provide a great free mentoring and learning platform to those who come and register at wfnen.org and connect them to experienced and expert mentors along with Investor Connects. The mechanism is very straightforward approach with goal-based, time-bound and structured mentoring. So enrich yourself connecting to 400 plus mentors from various fields of work and make a difference. As we begin, I'm so pleased to be with you and to have the chance to introduce our speaker, Sanket Shah. Sanket is a mentor with WFNEN. He is comprehensively involved with startup ecosystem by working closely with venture capital fund and incubation center for formation, necessary approvals with government agencies and arranging financial as well as other resources for growth for varied organizations. He is also an advisor to SMEs and non-profit organizations for turnaround strategies, restructuring like merger and acquisitions, business development, and market penetration strategies, etc. He is actively and closely engaged with varied innovative startups dealing in the sectors like healthcare through specialized treatments for cancer patients, education, promotion of rural arts, IoT-focused startups, IT startups, inclusive financial growth like micro-insurance, clean tech energy, etc. He is also active as a startup mentor as an advisory including setting up venture capital fund, equity sourcing and investment management, strategic planning and management structuring and corporate legal advisory. You can also connect with Sanket for mentorship on wfnen.org. After this presentation, we would have a discussion session for around 20 minutes where Sanket would answer your questions. So please send me relevant questions over chat which would be answered at the end of the session. I would love to hear your feedback on today's session. Your input and suggestions for future sessions are invaluable to me. So please leave your feedback on the poll at the end of the session. And without further ado, please join me in welcoming Sanket. Over to you, Sanket. You can please proceed.
Thank you so much, Sulakshna. Hi friends, we are starting with debt financing, and as you all know, debt financing is a very important source of finance to grow your business, to take the matter forward. And definitely one question that is always there, whether debt financing is available to the startups. Definitely it is very much difficult to get funding for debt funding for startups, considering the overall ambit within which even bankers and other financial institutions need to work. But I am going to take you through some of the very important sources which are available to you for debt financing in a very short while, around 30-35 minutes. And please do post me any kind of queries. I am going to give you a lot of material during this, and there are a few links also which are available to you. You can very well utilize it whenever you want. And all the links are having some or other direct linkages to the debt financing available to the startups. Right. How do we take it forward? So first of all, let's understand what are the sources of finance and why debt funding seems to be most important. So generally, the sources are equity, debt, government and grants. Right. When I specifically talk about the grants are not available for everything but to R&D. Government funds are available but to a very limited extent and majorly supported for R&D, because R&D is something which everybody is very much limited try. The only reason is there are potential chances of not getting success as well. So given such probabilities, government also extends a lot of support to R&D funding. But when it comes to startups, sustenance funding are available, but to a very limited extent. For example, in the state of Gujarat, 10,000 to 20,000 per month is available as a sustenance funding, and some funding is available for prototype as well as marketing development. When it comes to equity funding, we all are aware about that less than 1% of the startups are getting funded, and very costly source of capital. So number one, if you are getting any equity funding, you are definitely amongst only 1% of the total startups. But yes, you need to understand that no equity funding is going to cost you as low as debt funding. So now let's talk about how you can avail debt funding, particularly when we are saying that more than 50% of the businesses are exposed to real-time debt funding. I am sure you would have seen some of the messages on WhatsApp and Facebook and other social media platforms, wherein our big corporate giants are also exposed to a lot of debts, and our banks are also giving lots and lots of debt. How exactly this, and these transactions can be very well funded by the banks and other financial institutions. Let's have a look at it. Generally, what is debt financing? Debt financing is cash borrowed from a lender on a fixed and fluctuation interest rate for a predetermined tenure only. Right. Now, when we generally look at the tenure and the rate of interest becomes very, very important. Tenure can be as low as 3 to 4 years. If it is unsecured, it may be even 1-2 years, and it may go up to 10-15 years also. But on an average, industry practices are for approximately 5 to 7 years. What are the sources of debt funding? So banks, public sector and private sector banks, non-banking financial companies, NBFCs, financial institutions like CB, NABARD and all. Venture debts, which is new source of debt financing, we'll definitely look into it. Crowdfunding, peer-to-peer lending, we know there are few good crowdfunding platforms available, maybe Keto, maybe Kickstarter and all. And these crowdfunding platforms are also having an opportunity for peer-to-peer lending. Definitely friends and families, which are very difficult to crack, to be honest. And purchasers, how we can get a benefit out of the purchaser. Let's have a look at that as well later on. Debt financing is a key to success for your business, provided you are in a position to manage your credit worthiness and utilize available resources of debt finances. Now, it is very much important, if you have heard in a normal business parlance, managing credit scores are important, managing CIBIL and other ratings are also equally important. And unless you manage your credit worthiness, that's where your credit card and other payments come into picture. If you do not make payments on a timely manner through your credit cards or other thing, it definitely affects your score, which will hamper your any kind of debt financing later on. And yes, you need to know that when you can utilize which kind of resources. If you try to tap wrong resources for a wrong reason, probably chances of getting loans are very, very low. Right. What are the modes? Which way you can get the debt financing? I am going to be more specific towards the startup financing. Right. So for working capital purpose, it's a working capital financing for operational and based on the inventories and receivables. Now it is difficult to get really good receivables and inventories. But let's say, for example, if you are supplying anything to the large corporates, or if you are supplying anything to the government, that is B2G transaction, then definitely the receivables can be leveraged and you can get some working capital financing. Then next is term loans. If you are thinking, definitely every startups are thinking of larger growth and all. When you are thinking of long-term growth and capital expenditure, then you need to think of collaterals and repayment capacity. Now this too seems little difficult, but for many startups, if they are already on a scale where they can leverage some sort of assets and securities, what can be the securities? We'll check that also in the presentation. But if you can leverage and business is growing, and if you feel that yes, whatever amount that you are taking, you are in a position to repay it on a right manner, probably that's the best thing. Now these are some of the special schemes and the policies available to fund startups. Credit Guarantee Fund Trust for Micro and Small Enterprises, CGTMSE. I request to note down or maybe go through this particular presentation when it is uploaded on the NEN platform or the WF platform, because these are some of the schemes which you can actually refer online and try to get maximum benefit, because this is a loan which is collateral free up to 2 crore rupee. Now, in this case, the banks, that is public sector or maybe some of the private sector banks and maybe NBFCs are also eligible to extend you this 2 crore rupee loan against certain documentation, and collateral security will be available to you through government fund, that is guarantee small enterprises. Second is SIDBI Make in India loan for small enterprises. If you are into any kind of manufacturing business and if you are making something, then you can very well go to SIDBI and ask for the loan under SMILE. They do not give too big loan, but there is no restrictions on the upper limit of the loan, and there are rupees 10,000 crores are been allocated by Government of India for particularly this scheme, which is called SMILE. Then CLCSS, which is Credit Linked Capital Subsidy Scheme for technology upgradation, which is around 15% to technological upgradation up to 15 lakh rupees. Now, why am I saying you this kind of schemes and subsidies? I'll tell you one example. One of our startup with whom I was closely involved with, he was into biotechnology field. He has initially tried to tap the grant from BIG, that is Biotech Ignition Grant. He took around 1.5 crore rupee. Meaning this 1.5 crore rupee, he could develop whatever he wanted to develop. Once the R&D is up and running, he has some tangible product in hand, and he has started supplying this probable solution to large hospitals. These hospitals have definitely credit worthiness, and based on the receivables, now this person has also started getting some or other kind of loans from the banks. Now, when debt financing is available, when government funding is available, I can tell you at a minimum capital base of 1 lakh rupee, he has already leveraged his idea and his business profile up to around 2 crore rupee. Now, the value of that particular small startup has reached beyond around 4 to 5 crore rupee without making a single rupee revenue, only based on the probabilities of making revenue, because the startup is well funded so far by government as well as the banking channel. Right. Next, if you are into agro-based or rural development organization, then you can very well tap the resources which are available through NABARD as well, because NABARD has many schemes, like they have scheme for rural godowns, they have scheme for development, they have scheme for skill development of the rural farmers and all who can utilize the better technologies for the farming and ultimately production. There are structures of FPOs, farmer producers organizations, which used to be known as producer companies in as per the Companies Act. Everything is available, and NABARD can also extend very well loan. Right. Now, NSIC Limited, which is National Small Industries, for small scale industry. Now, you being a startup, you need not to think that you are other than SMEs, because startups are always a part of SMEs, and there are many benefits available to SMEs, for which you can also try to leverage all the benefits and avail all the benefits. SME is considered as a backbone of India. More than 60 to 70% of the population is dependent upon the SMEs. And given such scenario, there are many loans, there are many schemes, there are many supports available from banks as well as governments and financial institutions to SMEs, which is obviously available for you. And this is also very much important, that is market development assistance. Now you'll be surprised to know that, let's say if you have developed some product and you want to go ahead for any exhibition, right, any kind of marketing expense, there are various schemes available at government of state government level as well as government of India level, wherein you can be funded to take a participation into international and national trades in projecting your product in countries other than India and everywhere else, for which even Exim Bank also walks into the game, and they are trying to promote through export promotion councils, and this is what you are going to export it. So this is also one more thing which is a very important source of debt finance. Now we all are aware about that our Prime Minister Narendra Modi sir has announced One Startup India, Stand Up India in very first speech of after he being a Prime Minister, wherein in Stand-Up India loans are available to any entrepreneur who is SC, scheduled caste, scheduled tribe, or women entrepreneur. If you are a corporate entity, probably you need to be, because to be a startup, you need to be either LLP or registered partnership or private limited company. So given that if you are any of them and you are officially a startup, then at least 51 should be held by either SC/ST or women entrepreneur. But this date is available to only greenfield projects. Composite loans of 75% of the project cost. That means, for example, let's say your project cost is 1 crore rupee. Then 75 lakh rupee can be funded under the scheme Stand Up India. Right. May it be 70 capital as a term loan, maybe 15 lakh and 6 lakh kind of thing, but it is available. The rate of interest is very, very attractive. It is as low as base rate plus 3% only, wherein typical loans are base rate plus 5%, 6% also. Right. So it is low rate. Right. Primary securities, if available, beyond primary security, if any collateral securities are available, then definitely it is good. Otherwise, as I told you, there is a guarantee scheme available for Stand Up India also, and that is also available. So in short, this particular Stand Up India benefit is available to all the entrepreneurs, almost collateral free. Is moratorium means for next 18 months, you don't need to repay any principal amount. The only interest calculation will continue, and you need to repay only interest component. After 18 months till 7th year, end of 7th year, you have to repay the whole principal along with the interest, and that will be calculated based on the EMI schedule, as everybody must be aware. Right? And let's say this is up to 10, very, very small micro level enterprise, wherein the initial requirement is just 5 to 10 lakh, also under Mudra scheme. So if you look at up to 10 lakh, government is giving for being a startup will have limited access to the limited storage of the inventories. But yes, if you are, let's say, supporting, if you are supplying your goods or services to any kind of government organizations or large corporates, then this potential receivable has certain value. You can leverage that and you can get some working capital financing. Definitely, this working capital financing or any other kind of financing requires some sort of security, and what security that is available, that is possible, we'll check that in later slides of this game. And term loans. Definitely, you being a startup is interested in taking your startup to the next level, and you require a lot of capitalization for growth. But when we are talking about growth, term loans and are the very good solution, but that requires a lot of good collaterals and repayment capacity. Now, for example, you being a startup may have some collateral. If you are, experienced person, and if you have, done some job and you created some assets, and now you are starting your own business, then probably you might have some collaterals. But let's say if you are a fresher and if you are starting something new, then how will you be in a position to provide collateral? So for supporting such kind of situation, government has came up with some sort of schemes which are like credit guarantee fund trust for micro and small enterprises, that is CGT MSE, which is collateral free loan up to 2 crores for SMEs and startups. You being a startup are always part of the SME. I am repeating it once again. So you being a startup, you're always a part of the SME, MSME rather, and you can avail the benefits which are available to SMEs. Let me tell you, more than 60% of the employment and the dependency of the country's economic wealth is on SMEs. So you do not undermine the value of SME, and you being a part of the SME. SIDBI, Make in India loan for small enterprises. And if you are a small organization, if you are a small enterprise, then SIDBI provides certain loan which is at affordable rate, and this loan is available to you. There is no upper limit or lower limit which are prescribed at this point under SMILE, but you can very well take a benefit of the SMILE and take your business to the next level. Then I am sure if you are doing some business, or if you are thinking of some business, let's say you are having multiple technological equipments with you, and if you feel that yes, these technological equipments are a little outdated, I need to have some better technological equipments, then you being a startup, you being the SME part, you can take a benefit of credit linked capital subsidy scheme for technology upgradation, which is 15%. Now all these names are very, very famous. All these names have a lot of potential in terms of giving you a loan and support. So let's take it forward from this point. And next is NABARD. NABARD, if you are an agro-based startup, if you are having any rural startup, rural business, and if you think of developing your business to another level, NABARD is the best financial institution which can come forward for your help and can give you a lot of support. May it be rural godown development, may it be fintech support to the farmers, may it be technological support to the farmers, may it be some training for better production, or may it be some sort of any other support which is being extended to the farmers or farmer community, or maybe you are yourself doing some farming related or agriculture related startup. Then NABARD is one organization which can be one institution which can really help you to all the levels of your business. Then if you are small scale industry and let's say you are not fitting into any of the above parameters or XYZ, you can very well take benefit to National Small Industries Corporation Limited, wherein you can take certain advancements. For example, if you are supplying certain goods, if you are supplying certain services to some of the organizations or XYZ, you need certain advance money, you need some funds to execute particular contract. For that, NSIC can really play a very big role. And now imagine a scenario when your business is up and running, you are ready to grow your business and you want to grow your business out of India. You want to grow your business in India across different markets, verticals. Now for developing such markets, particularly if you are developing market out of India, you can get market development assistance also. Right. Once again, I am telling you, and I will tell you again and again, state governments have also allocated some funds for market development for startups and SMEs, but this is just fund which is available through Government of India, that is central government. And if you are particularly taking participation in international trade or something like that, even Export Promotion Council will play a major important role. Now, I'm once again repeating, Stand Up India. As we all know, Shri Narendra Bhai Modi has announced Stand Up India scheme on 15th of August 2014 or 15. And since then, Startup India movement, we all are aware about many incubators and everything is coming up. But Stand Up India is all about providing support to scheduled caste, scheduled tribe, and women entrepreneurs to bring the parity between all the classes in terms of the business. And if you have women entrepreneurs, or if you have a background of SC or ST or XYZ, you can avail of debt funding from government resources between 10 lakh to 100 lakh rupees. Right? Now, let's say you being a startup obviously requires to be having an entity which is private limited company or limited liability partnership or registered partnership. If you are any of these, you are a corporate entity, then at least 51% should be held by SC/ST or women entrepreneurs. Now debt is allocated to greenfield projects. That means any project which you are starting afresh, which is not existing project. If you have already started doing some activities, probably debt is not available to you. But if you are starting a new project altogether, right, then it is called as a greenfield project. Now, let's say if your project size is 100 lakh, that is 1 crore, then a loan of 75 lakh rupee is available to you. It may have any structure, capital structure of term loan and working capital, but definitely it's quite a big amount which is available looking at the total project size. And the rate of interest is just base rate plus 3%, wherein normal loans and normal term loans are available at base rate plus 5%, 6% also. Right. Now, these particular loans are available upon the collateral security. But let's say if you do not have collateral security, then for Stand Up India also, there is one credit guarantee fund scheme for Stand Up India, which provides guarantee to the lender on behalf of you by Government of India, and that way the loan is available without any collateral requirement. Now, these loans is so this is broadly we have discussed, and now we are onto ecosystem supporting. As I told you, we have very large ecosystem, but now the best and the most important part of the ecosystem is existing banks, state governments, Government of India. Everybody has came up together to support startup ecosystem. Existing banks have came up like Union Bank of India, Bank of Baroda, Canara Bank and other banks have also created one startup policy, which policy is available for the benefit of startups, wherein startups are given a lot of leeway in terms of their financials, in terms of the requirement, in terms of the rate of interest, in terms of the collaterals, in terms of everything. Now, beyond this, I think government, state government, as I've told you, Government of India, for example, has came up with multiple policies, and the Government of India has also came up with the policy. For example, let me tell you, Government of India has given around 50 crore each to 10 mega incubators, and around 130 plus incubators are there. And Government of India is planning to support 10 crore each to every incubator after successful operations of 1 or 2 years kind of thing. So now these funds are available ultimately as a pool to these incubators, not to create infrastructure, but to actually help startups. Then the startup will be helped by way of grants, but also more than a grant. Government and incubators are very much keen in providing debt funding so that the amount can be taken back. And when particularly we are funding XYZ amount to for-profit organization, there has to be a capability of repaying back. Otherwise, the sustenance becomes very, very difficult if the fund is available from day one for free of cost. R&D and some additional fund for sustenance is a different matter altogether, but larger funding cannot be available to for-profit entity for not repayment. You have to repatriate the fund, then only your business has a capacity to absorb larger fund and repay larger fund, absorb larger funding and repay larger funding, or maybe provide an upside to the larger funding. Now, you must know, if you are part of any incubator or if you have got connected to an incubation center, then your incubator, by virtue of being an incubator from day one, they are eligible to accept CSR funds. And if such CSR funds are available to such incubator, then incubators are giving it by way of loan. So given that, you being a startup or being a part of the ecosystem can very well try to check that which incubator has raised some substantially good amount by way of CSR, which can be available to you at a soft loan or soft rate of interest, and then ultimately this can be taken into next level. Yes. Now, initially, before Companies Act 2013 came into force, unsecured loans and deposit acceptance was very, very casual, and anybody used to give good unsecured loans, and now there are stringent provisions related to unsecured loans. Now, we need to restrict the acceptance of unsecured loan because there are many restrictions. Generally, private company cannot accept loans or deposit from any person other than its directors. For now, that means if somebody is giving you unsecured loans, this is little funny in a way. Ultimately, owners of the business are the equity holders. But let's say if you are just an equity holder, but if you are not a director of the company, you cannot extend this particular loan. So who will give loan if not owners? But this is unanswered question. So let's look at it. What you need to do is, if you have a private company or any other company, you need to bring XYZ as a director along with you if you are availing some sort of a loan into your company and try to grow your business. Right. And if it is not the case, then there are many provisions which is certainly related to the reserves and surplus and maybe the deposits which are available. There is a requirement of the insurance, and there are some credit rating formulations are also required. If you meet certain provisions and if you meet certain criteria, then definitely you can take loan subject to approval by the necessary authority. Now, for example, if you receive share application money and if you are not allotting that funds to your applicant within a reasonable time, I think 6 months is the time, then you need to repay that application money, otherwise it will be treated as deposited and it will be treated as a violation of the law, and this legal violation can put you in danger, and the people who are in charge with the governance, that is directors, CEOs and CFOs, CXOs, are liable to pay certain things. So you need to be very, very cautious about such stuff, and for that I am telling you, please take proper consent and consultation with your chartered accountant, company secretary or lawyer before indulging into any such transaction. Because even if you do not do it, it is not only Ministry of Corporate Affairs but also Income Tax Department can also walk in if you have not mitigated certain transactions and the valuation report to an approved value. So these are very, very important provisions which one must keep in mind, and I know this is very, very easy source of getting the funds and repaying back and all, but beware of this kind of funds, particularly in a startup phase, otherwise it will bring you unnecessarily into a lot of litigations. Now, this is something important and new, though we are probably aware about because we have read these things in day-to-day newspapers and we have heard a lot about it, but this is about venture debt. Now we know that generally private equity in venture capital is a form of capital bringing in, that is by way of equity. But what is venture debt? Venture debt is a fund provided by such VC funds or maybe other arms to grow the startup by way of loan, by way of convertible debts. So this can be said as a quasi debt. This can be said as a mezzanine, wherein you have structured it properly by way of equity as well as the debt, and this debt is over a period gets converted or maybe repaid back to the lender. But this is very, very important, but it is not generally perceived to be given to everybody. There are certain misnomers and ultimately they are the owner of this fund, so they can take decision. But the premise for venture debt is in mature market is largely centered on technological companies, mostly having patents. Now, for example, day one, you are not in a position to derive a right value of the patents or maybe intellectual properties. At that point, you are deriving a benefit through the future potential of the patents or maybe intellectual property by way of providing venture debt, because you do not know what is the kind of percentage value you can have in particular companies by way of equity participation when such intellectual property driven companies, that is technologically driven companies, are progressing. Because you know, even technological companies like General Electronics or maybe let's say Apple or Microsoft or something like that, or Google, right? Their growth is sudden. You cannot actually think of, if you put it on paper, if you put it on Excel, you cannot show a growth of 1000%, 2000%, 3000%. It looks little absurd when you look at apparently. But yes, this is the fact. Their growth is like this. So given such, venture debt is a very, very good market, and there you get a good amount of return of interest also. Now, venture debt is again one more thing. It is not to take equity risk, because you are not even. So we were on the venture debt. So fundamentally, venture debt is something like Let's say if I'm not sure whether this intellectual property or whether these technological companies can actually create the right growth momentum, then given that, at least I would not like to take a right equity risk at this juncture, because at least at the time of winding up or liquidation, the priority is given to debenture or maybe debt over equity. So debt is definitely a secured compared to equity. So investors would like to provide debt in technological companies, mostly having patents, as I've told you, right? But one thing one must keep in mind, typically companies eligible are those which have raised institutional equity. So generally at this juncture, because Indian ecosystem is still not matured for startups, and particularly investment ecosystem is still on the way. So we are not still a Silicon Valley. Definitely Bangalore is trying to do something good. Gurgaon is good, but still we are not a Silicon Valley. So considering that, such venture debt is available only to those who have already raised an institutional equity and have a strong ability to sustain equity interest. So given that, when I'm talking that I have already exposed myself to a certain extent to particular venture, and I don't want further exposure, but I feel if I do not invest further, I might have to dilute my stake, which is also I'm not interested in, or I might have to lose out onto the growth that is possible. So given scenario, what I do is I need to have a strong, if I look at the strong equity interest of mine, I would give some venture debt at that juncture. So if I give a lot of equity, then definitely it affects my portfolio outcome also, because then comparatively my return and risk profiling will be affected. But if I give by way of debt, my return and risk profiling will minimally get affected, and also I will be in a position to maintain my interest in terms of the equity growth as well as my equity stake holding. So now, when we are talking about this kind of debt proposals, when we are talking about multiple applications to banks and government institutions, particularly when we look at the banks do not give loans without proper CMA data and project report. So let's look at what is CMA data. The CMA data is credit monitoring arrangement, CMA data, and a project report. Particularly credit monitoring arrangement, CMA, is must as per the RBI guidelines. Either you are trying to get term loan or working capital loan. In CMA data, what you provide, you being a startup probably may not be in a position to provide past 2 years of statement. But let's say if you have 1 year or 2 years of statement, you need to provide actual data, which is audited balance sheet, audited books, then current year's provisional data, and next 2 years projections. So how your company will take it forward. This is not an equity investment where you provide a projection for next 5 years, 7 years, and then also you stretch it to the infinity while calculating your valuation. No, this is not the case. Here the projections are being provided only for 5 years or 3 years. Yes, definitely if you are trying to repay it over a period of 7 years or 8 years, your other parameters will be checked, but this is how generally CMA data is being prepared. Project report comprises of promoter's background. It is very, very important. Business profile, that is business modeling, if we say, right, how we are going to source manpower and manpower, availability and everything. Detailed management, financial and economic viability. That why we are thinking that this is most viable business for us, and unless we are in a position to prove it, it is very, very difficult for us to raise the fund. There is a very specific format for CMA data, right, which is common across all the banks. But when it comes to detailed project report or project report, there is no such pro forma. That means you need to convince yourself that this is what all information I would like to provide to the lender, potential lender, and they will feel, yes, this is what we can lend, or this is what we would like to. So that means we need to provide all the details, may it be SWOT, may it be market penetration strategies, may it be our founders and their background, family background, may it be the advisors and mentors, XYZ people. We need to provide every aspect of this particular CMA as well as the project report. Now, there are very pertaining information required under CMA, because when banks try to analyze your credit worthiness, banks try to analyze whether to give a loan or what. Banks look at one thing, that is ratio analysis. And ratio analysis are very, very important. One more thing along with the ratio analysis that is important, that is security and track record. Let's say if your track record is not so good, if you have taken away the business loans, if you have availed any personal loans, and if you are not paid in time, if you are late payers, if your EMI is getting bounced, then definitely it affects your credit score and nobody is interested in giving you loan. Similar way, you need to provide certain security. As I've told you earlier, there are requirements of security. What is the kind of security that you can extend, right? So generally, formal sources, particularly banks and financial institutions, do not let securities in hand, otherwise then a collateral-free loan. Collateral-free loans are also somewhere secured for them because credit guarantee funds are being set up by Government of India, and that is available to all of our banks. But let's say if you need to provide security, what are the kind of securities that you can provide? So one is guarantee. Let's say somebody who is becoming a guarantor, having sufficient background and all that stuff, he can be a good guarantor, then it can work. Then some good endorsement. Endorsements are like some large corporations or government organizations or something like that. Again, account receivable. If you have already supplied certain thing and if you are expecting, let's say, fund. Hello.
Yes, Ankit, we can hear you.
Hello.
Please, yeah, please share your screen and.
Perfect. So I think. Yeah, I have shared it. No. Wait. So account receivables. The equipment financing, there are many ways through which if your equipment is costly equipment, then there are methods of getting finance for the equipment. Equipment becomes a primary security. There is another mode through which you can, for example, if you are buying a large equipment and if the company is large, somebody like GE or something like that, the equipment is available on lease also, that is leasing. And beyond the lease, equipments are available, for example, for free of cost also for a time, and then with a contract that for particular number of years, the consumables required by that particular equipment is available for financing. So you need to explore this kind of financing models when you are dealing with any potential seller also. When you are buying any equipment, you need to see that how the financing is available to them. Are they like, okay, you take this particular machine and then we will be supplying this particular thing, then this machine cost is, we can reduce the cost of machine to this certain extent with the cap that you will be taking MNC, that is asset maintenance, annual maintenance contracts and all for next 5 years, 10 years. And that way you can actually subsidize the cost of machine and you can avail some sort of financing this way. Right. Then listed securities, definitely very much important. Listed securities can be financed. Right. Obviously, there are parameters of considering the price of the listed security. So 52-week high, low, and average, and all that stuff. Then real estate, land, building. Pure land is not that preferred by the banks right now, unless it is at a prime location. But otherwise, let's take it. I think insurance policies and fixed deposits. I was on to that. That yes, if you have any FD that you kept it, and if you have any insurance policies, you can very well put that also as one of the security, and you can avail overdraft facility against it. So, for example, let's say if your fixed deposit of 10 lakh rupee, then up to around 90% of the value of the fixed deposit, or maybe the maturity value of the insurance policy, the funds can be available to you. As I told you, inventories, that is stock in trade, it's definitely one of your very, very important source of, working capital financing. Then display merchandise and floor planning. Let's say if you have any showroom and whatever is in your display merchandise and your floor planning, that is, if you have created something great, then that is also available that you can keep it. That is, in a way, it's a real estate, and display merchandise are something like if you have statues and all that stuff. You can very well consider the value of that as well. And lease payments, as I have told you, if you are going ahead with some larger machinery or larger, like a 99-year-old lease, for land or something like that can also get you a lot of benefits from financing income. This is a very, very important slide that is on important ratios. CMA report is being analyzed by banks where most important ratios are critically analyzed. These are the most important ratios. First is current ratio, that is current asset by current liability. See, unless you being a startup cannot manage your liquidity well, right, your current assets and your current liability depicts your picture, your strength of the liquidity. If you cannot manage your liquidity well, right, whatever are your plans, whatever are your assets, right, it may not be the case that you can go forward. So what you need to look at is, yes, you should have a good liquidity in your hand wherein you can actually pay out your day-to-day expenses and everything. So that is one thing. Just to consider an liquidity in much more precise manner, it is also seen that, let's say for example, stock is not being liquidated immediately. That means nobody is buying your stock immediately. Then your cash and cash equivalents except liquidity, except inventory becomes your liquidity. So you need to check that vis-a-vis your current liability, how much you are going to receive, how much you are going to pay, what is the surplus, that is your current ratio, how much you are going to receive or how much you have right now is something related to the liquidity ratio. The next is debt equity ratio. It is very, very important to see if you are trying to bring 75% debt, then your debt equity becomes 3:1, right? It is okay to a certain extent, but then when your business is grow, the debt equity cannot be more than 1.5 to 1 or 2 to 1 or 1.33 to 1, right? For very large businesses, debt equity can be 1:1 also. That means, let's say if you have 1 crore of debt and 1 crore of equity, you can have 1.5 crore of debt and 1 crore of equity, you can have 1.33 crore of debt and 1 crore of equity. But there has to be a debt portion also in the business. Otherwise, your business is not actually growing. Your business is not well structured. Capital structure is not created well. So considering that, you can check that debt is more important component in the businesses compared to equity, because equity predicts a lot of risk, debt predicts a lot of security, and that is very much important. And one very, very important ratio which is must by any lender, that is your debt service coverage ratio. That means how well you are in a position to repay your debt, how your businesses are reflecting that you can repay your debt in a timely manner. Because unless repayment capacity is established, it is very difficult for you to take the loan. So your earning before interest, depreciation, tax and amortization, that is EBITDA, versus principal and interest. That means आपका अर्निंग, एक्चुअल अर्निंग, बिजनेस अर्निंग कितना है, इंटरेस्ट निकाल दो क्योंकि वो बैंक के रिलेटेड है, टेक आउट द डेट, डिवेंचर, depreciation portion, taxation portion and amortization portion. Because before taxation and interest, you need to repay the loan by way of this thing. So it is earning before interest, depreciation, tax and amortization with the principal and interest that will give you a lot of base for debt service coverage ratio. And it is very, very important. You need to check whether your business has a capacity to repay the loan or not. Right. Now with this, I am ending my session. Broadly, I have given some links. As I have told you, these links will help you in understanding a lot of debt side, and also gives you a lot of direct linkages to various loans and the schemes which are available. This will help you to take it forward. You can reach me on my coordinates over here through NEN also and over here also. And if any way we can help you, we'll be more than happy. I'm not sure how far we have now time in our hand to get into question answer, but anybody who has any question, I'm all here to answer that.
Yeah, I have received few questions, Sanket. I'm opening the line for P. Ranjit. Ranjit, you can please ask your questions. So Ranjit, what I can say is that you have self-muted yourself. So if you can unmute and ask the questions. Yeah, so I can see, yeah, Ranjit, you can please proceed.
Hi Sanket. Can you hear me?
Hi. Yeah, please.
Sanket, I just wanted to know, is there any portal or government websites where every detail of whatever you told is available, so that like we can go back and we can check any if there is any new thing that we can actually that be helpful for us. And
Broadly,
yeah.
yeah. Please go ahead. Please tell me.
Hello.
Yeah, Ranjit, you can please ask your
Yeah, please
question.
tell me.
And I was not sure, like, is this facilities is available only for the SC/STs, or is it available for other entrepreneurs also?
The Stand Up India facility is available only for SC, ST and women entrepreneurs. So it is available for women entrepreneurs also, right? Let me get on to the first question. Number one, to answer, there are few links I have already given over here, which give Startup India and SIDBI Startup India and small LB SIDBI.in. These are 3-4 links which will give you all the updates on a regular basis, and also you'll be in a position to find any kind of schemes being floated by Government of India over here. Also, the third link that I have written over here, that is msme.gov.in, right? So these are some of the screens that you can always go through. You can keep these particular links with you, right? It is going to be uploaded, and then these links will always help you to know that which kind of schemes are being floated by government and different banks. Okay, and number two, number two, yes, women entrepreneurs are also given some benefit in Stand Up India. All the CGT, MSc and all the credit guarantee funds and everything is available to all the startups. It is not pertaining to only SC, ST and women entrepreneurs. It is for all. Only the loan which is
one person in the team, or else it's supposed to be handled by only the women entrepreneurs.
No.
Like as an individual.
No, if women entrepreneur has more than 51% of the holding in particular business, then that business can be considered as driven by women entrepreneurs.
Okay.
Yeah, so that is also clearly mentioned. See, if we go back and right, see, in case of corporate entity, at least 50% should be held by any of the above. That is SC, ST or women entrepreneur. Let's say women entrepreneur is holding around 51% or more, then it will be considered as a women entrepreneur driven business, and then Stand Up India is available.
Okay.
All right?
Yeah.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thanks a lot.
We have a next question from Kamal Rathore. So,
yeah.
Hello. Yeah, I'm trying to opening the line for Kamal Rathore. Hello, Sanket.
Sure.
Okay, so I'm unable to somehow unmute him. So Kamal Rathore, I had asked, can startup company apply for more than one scheme?
Yes, definitely you can apply for more than one scheme, but not all the schemes. There are certain schemes, like for example, if you already received a fund under one particular scheme, and if it is disbursed through SIDBI only, then SIDBI may not give you another because you are already given some benefits from government. But let's say if it is a scheme of state government and if it is a scheme of central government, then you can avail the benefit of both the schemes. Hello?
Yeah, please continue, Sanket.
Yeah, so was that clear? Actually, what I'm trying to say is, okay, let's say if you avail the benefit of the scheme which is by state government, and if you have another scheme by central government, you can separately approach both the governments to get the benefits, and it can be mutually. So again, there is no pertaining, okay, this is what is allowed and this is what not is allowed, right? It is based on, but let's say, for example, there is one scheme that is smaller LB, there is another scheme which is Stand Up India, both are through SIDBI, and the CGT MSc is also driven through SIDBI. Then SIDBI will definitely give a restriction that based on the limitation, based on the credentials that the startup has, debt financing and the exposure can be provided. So there is no particularly that only one scheme you can get a better restriction in terms of your exposure, looking at the size of the business and all.
There is
Next
one
question,
question from Twinkle Desai. Twinkle asks, is the
Yeah.
financing available for IT startups?
Yes, financing is available, but yes, there needs to be some sort of and then receivable financing is definitely positive financing right now, because we all are aware about that IT startups particularly have got a lot of support from venture capital and private equity and angel industry. But when I look at the debt financing industry, yes, if you are supplying, if you are providing services to the large corporates or maybe the government organizations, then probably based on the receivable you can avail certain benefits. Otherwise it is very, very difficult to get the funding, because IT infrastructure and all is comparatively quite cheap and less costly compared to manufacturing industry. So if there is a creation of a tangible security by way of primary security, then banks are more interested. So it is difficult but not impossible for IT industry.
Jyotishman Goswami, if you are available, can you please ask your question?
Yeah. Hello, Sanket.
Hi.
Yeah. My query is regarding the Mudra scheme.
Right.
So it has a high interest rate of around 16% for loan up to 10 lakhs. Now if the government wants to promote the small enterprises, so often in the startup is regular cash flows, and so how do you handle this? Why the government is having a higher interest rate in such a scenario?
I completely understand your concern, but definitely I cannot comment anything on it because the rate of interest remains what you are saying is right. But if government wants to provide this, so we need to check that if you are being provided with this such kind of Mudra loan and all, can there be interest subsidy available also? So there is the portion of interest subsidy, let's say by state of Gujarat. So Gujarat government is providing interest subsidy up to 5%. So now from 16% to it became 11%. So then it is affordable loan, but otherwise 16% is way too high, I can say. But yes, there is always something is better than nothing. If you are not getting exposed to any kind of financing, then yes, you can still take this kind of Mudra loan and take the business forward from a particular point. But definitely, I completely understand. Let's say if we look at the stand-up India, it is just base rate plus 3%, which is like around 11 to 12% is quite reasonable. But if you talk about 16%, is not that reasonable. But yes, let's hope that this also gets down to a certain extent in the near future. Right?
We have another question from Chitransh Agnihotri. Chitransh, you can please ask your question. Chitransh Agnihotri, you can please ask your question.
Hello.
Yeah, please ask.
Yeah, you are.
So, are these schemes are also applicable on service-based startups, as our majority of the costs are manpower costs, okay, and marketing costs, as well as do CG credit guarantee fund trust, are they covering this funding into the scheme also?
Yeah. So basically, service-based startups have major cost in terms of manpower, as you rightly said, which is covered broadly under working capital. So if you are availing a working capital financing from banks or something like that, definitely this, for growth projection, some support is provided by these credit guarantee schemes, right, for service-oriented organizations also, right, but with a very, very strong records of the promoters and potential of the service, everything is being considered very clearly by the banks before they go ahead with this financing, because there is no primary security which is being created for in service sector orientation. And we all are aware about that there are many problems are being faced by banks in terms of NPAs, non-performing assets. So at least now they are always after some sort of a security creation so that they can be secured to a certain extent against the debt is being provided. But if you have a strong fundamentals in terms of your clientele, in terms of your growth projection and the services which are highly required by corporates and governments, yes, then definitely, or maybe large client base is already been proven on the paper, then working capital loan can be very well extended by the banks.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah, thank you.
Thanks.
Yeah.
There is another
Next question,
question from M. Kumar. M. Kumar, you have self-muted, so can you just open your line and ask your question? M. Kumar, you have self-muted. Okay, so M. Kumar he has a question. Can we get all resource links to get updated? And he has also asked, if branch of a bank refuses to offer under government schemes, how to take it forward?
There are two things. You first of all need to understand why branch has said no, number one. If branch is not eligible to extend that particular loan, you can very well, you can very well mail it to the next hierarchy, that is maybe regional level or zonal level. Then you will be in a position to understand. Then if there are some reservations from branch, you can very well take it to RBI also, because if this is being mandated by government, no branch can deny, unless there are some reservations in terms of why. So there is one thing which I have learned in my experience of this many years with many startups, even with my own startup. If any banker says no for any kind of lending, generally they do not say no. But if they are saying no, kindly ask that in writing with a reason. If you ask particular thing in a writing with a reason, you can very well take it to the next level. You can say that this is the reason why you have been denied, or this is the reason that you want to overcome to get the loan. You can apply, you can approach even RBI or banking or ombudsman in case of non-cooperation, if at all any. Otherwise, you need to understand very in detail that what kind of reservations the bankers are having for funding your startup. If you come to know about that, probably majority of the problems can be solved. And still, if nothing is happening, you can very well take it to the zonal level, region level of that particular bank, or maybe RBI and ombudsman. All right.
Okay, Sanket, I am not receiving any other questions. So participants, if you have any question, you can write back to me at my email ID, and also you can connect with Sanket for mentoring on WFNEN portal. So for today, concluding this webinar on how to use debt financing to fuel startup growth, it was a pleasure having the webinar session with Sanket. I truly appreciate the way you covered each and every topic in detail and also cleared out doubts on the same. And I would also like to express my appreciation to the participants on behalf of Wadhwani Foundation, National Entrepreneurship Network, for your dedicated participation on the webinar. We apologize for the dropouts in the internet, and this could not be avoided due to the incessant rain in Gujarat. And we would be having another webinar series shortly and would like to bring to you another enriching experience. Wish you success in your endeavor. Thank you. And thank you, Sanket, once again.
Thank you so much for patiently hearing. Thank you so much, everybody. Thank you.